This is Canon Fodder, episode 66, live from Russia, a small village in Russia. And joining me is my friend Scott. Scott, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. This book is the third Dostoevsky novel that we've done on the show, and plot-wise, it's probably the most complex. There's
Yeah,
a
I would.
lot going on in this book.
What are the other books that y'all have done?
So I did Crime and Punishment and The Brothers Karamazov. So his two more famous works. This is probably the third or fourth on his uh
The Big
how
Four.
famous are my novels
Yeah,
type deal.
for sure. I actually am surprised at how little people talk about it, but I noticed that like the people who do read it, they come away like being like, yeah, I think this is the best of his works. Because I unfortunately haven't read all of his Big Four. I've only read Crime and Punishment, Devils, and like a lot of his short stories and some of his memoirs. But like Devils really stands out to me.
I still think The Brothers Karamazov is his best work.
Yeah, I really need to get into that.
It's
Like,
I highly
yeah,
recommend it. And the reason that I think that, which we can kind of tie in this book, is it has just as much substance, but it is more focused.
yeah,
This book, it's kind of hard to track what's going on some of the time because I don't know about you, but Russian names are kind of difficult for me. So
oh my
when we
gosh,
have
they're
like
so hard.
when we have like I think it's literally like 30 named characters. I didn't do a
Yeah,
count, but there might be like 30 named characters.
yeah, and a lot of
And
them use their petroname, like their
yep,
father's name. So like you have to keep track on like not only all the names, but who is who, like in given situations, because they might have the same. Sorry, they might have the same name. So it's like I don't know. I was definitely in the character cast page like a shit ton when I started reading this book because I was just like so overwhelmed by it.
and I wanted to mention this before we really get into it, but it's fortuitous that episode 66 is devils or demons or the
Oh,
possessed.
that's a good point. Yeah, we got to
Uh,
stop on 666, the timestamp.
yeah, I don't like that.
I'm just kidding. Sorry. Yeah,
No,
that would be horrible if we did a 5 minute or like 6 minute podcast. Or is it even possible? I'm sounding so stupid. I'm sorry.
that's all
Anyway,
right.
let's
I
get
knew
into the
I knew how
book.
stupid you were when I
Yeah, I know.
invited
It's
you
not a
on.
front. Like I'm never fronting like my, stupid assness. But yeah, let's get into it. So you said you read this book. What is your takeaway? Like,
Uh, the obvious takeaway is, wow, how prescient was Dostoevsky to write this book, and then what, 70 or no, not 50 years, 50, 60 years later, the October Revolution happens. Uh, the communists take over the country, and we see on a larger scale what nihilism and what revolution without purpose, and really revolution in general, can do to a society.
yeah.
I think really the lesson that I took away from it was, why didn't anybody read this? Why was it just
Like brushed
preordained?
aside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
was the outcome preordained even in the 1860s? Because I believe this novel was written in I gotta pull up my notes. Uh, 1873. This book was published. All right, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, how can we,
No, that
or
was
how could Russian society ignore this? How could they not see what he was seeing?
well, I think like a lot of them did, and that's kind of like one of the big things that I really loved about the book is like there's this huge dynamic between the generations. So you have like the parent generations, which is like, if there's four main characters, two of them take that parent generation uh two of them are in the parent generation, and they're kind of looking down at their kids, and they're just like, what is going on? Like, what is this madness that has like possessed y'all and is making y'all like just throw away tradition, want revolution? Like, you come back to your hometown and you hate it, and you just want to destroy everything. So like, I do think that there was like, you know there had to be like some kind of feeling in the, what am I trying to say? Like, in the society that like knew that this was a bad thing, but
Well, yeah, I
um,
mean, it's very obviously a bad thing. I guess my question is, nobody did anything about it, or at least, in
yeah,
retrospect, it seems like nobody did anything about it. You
for
know,
sure.
uh, one thing, apparently Dostoevsky, in his notes about this book, specifically references communism as this unstoppable force that's going to subsume Russia, which is interesting.
Yeah, he had a lot of really interesting predictions. Actually, like after I read this book, I wanted to know like what else that he read, and like he actually read like a lot of writers who like really big on cyclical history, like Jean-Baptiste Vico. He's a guy who wrote this book, The New Science, and that had like a profound effect on Dostoevsky that made him like, um, yeah, see history as this cyclical thing. And where was I taking that? I'm sorry, dude. I'm a horrible interviewer. Just like
That's all right.
full stop.
No, you're
That's why
doing
I was
great.
really happy when you told me that this was like pre-recorded. I was like, oh, sick. I can like kind of go on my tangents that make no
Yeah,
sense.
no,
But
this
yeah,
show is
anyway.
nothing without its tangents.
But
Please
yeah,
go ahead, go off.
like he definitely, like, this is what I really love about Dostoevsky, is that he has this like multi-layered view of reality. I mean, like we all do to some extent, but like he is able to fictionalize it. And like, you get like, what's interesting about Devils to me is that it's a really historical piece. Like, this was happening in Russia. Like, French influence, European influence is pouring in to Russia, and you had like these, this young generation that wanted revolution, and he is able to make that feel timeless. Like, he's able to really make that feel like a. Can you hear my kid crying in the
I
background?
can, yes.
Okay,
That's
one
adorable.
second.
I'll pause it.
All right, so like what I was saying is that like Dostoevsky's novel Devils is like, it's really historically rooted. I mean, this was a phenomenon that was happening in Russia, where you had these this younger generation that was like literally trained in Europe. I mean, like they went to all the official schools in France and Switzerland, and then they would bring back these ideas that they were being taught over there, and they would be like, man, Russia sucks. Like, we need to make Russia like Europe. And like, this stupid orthodox religion that we follow, this stupid monarchy that we have, like, this peasant caste system, we need to tear that all down. And what's interesting about Dostoevsky is that he's able to make that kind of feel like a timeless story. Like,
Mm,
I was kind of putting off reading it for a while because, like, I don't know, I'm a modernist. I like modern literature. I like the play of ideas more than anything when I read fiction. So when I went in to read that book, I was kind of like, man, I don't know if I just want to read about, like people in a small Russian town. Like, I don't. This is a really hard sell for me. But like, he is able to pull it off. Like from the introduction, like I was just floored, because like one thing that really surprised me that people don't bring up about Dostoevsky is that he's really funny. Like, I never hear people touch on that. Like, in the intro, where the narrator is like making fun of like the professors and like their their habit of following trends of ideas, I was like, this is perfect. Like this is the same. Like, this is like a timeless element that he's able to really touch on, and that's something that I think sets Dostoevsky apart from a lot of other writers. Like, he's really good at cutting into the human element of things, and like that timeless element of us. Like, all the hype around Dostoevsky, people saying like, "Oh, he's the father of psychology." It's like, I can see why they say that. Like, without, yeah,
oh, definitely. I think that there's the accolades that he's gotten are at least earned. Maybe not well deserved, depending on your opinion. But uh, reading his work, you can definitely, you could
Yeah,
definitely come away with that. You mentioned that you were sort of iffy about the setting, right? Because it is, yeah,
yeah,
like a small Russian village, and we're kind of just seeing this particular Russian village as maybe a microcosm for the nation as a whole, right?
yeah.
That's like right out of Greece, you know.
No, for sure.
That
Yeah,
it's right out of the tragedians. I think especially whether it's Oedipus Rex or maybe Ajax, or even oh, what's that other one? Uh, Lysistrata, right?
yeah,
Which is, the women stop having sex with the men because they won't stop going to war. It's great play, and they like all hole up in the polis and to keep themselves away from the men, and the men try and like break it down. Great
so
play, but
this is where I like admit something. I have not read much of the Greek tragedies at all, like outside of Bacchus by Euripides. And
that's all right. We're here to talk Dostoevsky. I was just bringing up as a
no,
point, like
but
like that
like
he's
that is like the point that I was kind of like trying to bring home is that like yeah, Dostoevsky is timeless in that way. Like you can see, like you were pointing out, that you could see this in other works. But yeah,
so. And the thing about Dostoevsky too, especially his plots and his characters, it reads like soap opera.
yeah. What
It's
do you exactly mean by that? Because like
it's
the
it's this cast of characters. Everybody's either having sex with everybody else, or there's some kind of scandal. It's very melodramatic, I
yeah, it
guess.
is.
The
Yeah,
plots are melodramatic, and the people are dirty. They're just like they're almost as bad as, and they act in certain ways too that only enhance the melodrama, right? So you can
yeah,
watch like trashy television, right, and make fun of the writing going on,
yeah.
and you're like, oh, no real person would act like that. But then you read Dostoevsky, and
It's
all it takes
convincing.
is, yeah,
Yeah,
all it takes is like just better dialogue and framing, and suddenly it's like, oh, I could totally believe that uh so and so would act in this way.
yeah,
It's
totally.
just it's funny how good writing masks up for plot contrivances.
No, for sure. And like you are right. Like, as the novel progresses, the depravity like just keeps going up and up and up. And um yeah, it is. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. It definitely is soap opera-y.
It even has the shocking deaths and suicides, especially towards the end. It's like almost like Hamlet in how many people die towards the end of the book, just as a way of wrapping things up, but also as a way um, to reset things, to go
Yeah.
back to normal. The plague, the possessed, the devils, whatever you want to call them, uh, it has to be soundly routed from the society,
No,
and
for
that
sure.
includes taking out people who are tainted by. I'm gonna mess up his name so badly.
It's okay, bro.
Uh, yes, well,
Peter, right? Or like
yes,
that would be
Piotr.
the
Yeah,
English. Yeah, Peter
yes. So
Jr.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Pyotr Stepanovich,
Yeah.
we'll call him, and that'll be the easiest. We won't go into uh, Verkovensky is,
I
I
just
think, the
called him
last name.
Junior in my head
Yeah,
because
Junior.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, even his character and his relationship with his father is super interesting because
It's real.
he's the son of an intellectual, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And he doesn't
and
feel like his dad has gone far enough and
right,
like
right. His
yeah.
father's he sees his father as like kind of buffoonish, and he is a buffoon
Yeah.
also
But
throughout the
like in
whole
an
book.
innocent way.
Right.
Like
Well, no, not innocent.
I don't know. Like
I see
well
him as like he's like a total mooch,
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like
But like,
he's like a
I don't know. I
parasite.
have a really big soft spot for Peter Senior. So like his whole dynamic is just, he's kind of innocently going. Well, I won't use
Well,
that
what do
word
you mean by
here.
Peter?
I
You
won't.
mean Stepan or
Uh,
Stephen?
yeah, Peter's dad. I don't remember his name, but
Yes,
it's
Stephen.
okay. Steven, sorry. But so Steven, like to me, he's kind of a failed intellectual. Like, he got chased out of Petersburg and goes back to his hometown. And yeah, like you said, he's mooching off his lady patroness. And he, I don't know, he just strikes me as innocent because he's the only one that has the sobriety to see like what his kids are doing. And, they're, trying to destroy their tradition, and he's like, this is a bad thing. And even his patroness is like, what are you talking about? Like, you're being really old fashioned right now. And
Yeah,
then
you're
that makes
being
him like kind of snap.
reactionary, which
Yeah,
is
and
like
he's
the
like,
worst
what
thing you
the
can
hell
be.
is going on? And like, I sympathize with him a lot. And not like saying that I have that kind of clarity. God help me, I hope I do in times of like, upheaval like that. But um his whole death is kind of like, you know, him giving that monologue on Luke, the book of Luke, and like saying like, basically this is what's that parable, is what is happening to Russia. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I really like him. I see him as like
Right.
a
He
really
definitely
innocent
he
figure. Um, and
well
that
well we can say that he has
redeemed.
an earn yeah,
Yeah.
that yes, that he's redeemed at the end.
Okay.
It's
Sorry. I when I say innocent, I guess what I should mean is that he's just kind of going along with the motions. Like he was kind of
mm,
groomed into thinking the way that he is, but like when it goes too far, he snaps out of it and he's like, no, like this isn't right. Like this is not a good thing. Like he's not really doing anything with any malicious animus. And when it becomes apparent to him that that's what his son is doing, that's when he kind of is like, okay, like this is evil. And he's the only one for a while that has the mental clarity to point that out.
okay.
So, yeah,
Okay,
that's what
here's something.
I meant.
Here's a question for you because I read this book when I was still a sort of fan of Jordan Peterson,
Okay.
right? Because he brought up this book a bunch of times. And I was like, oh, I gotta clean my room. I gotta, read great books,
Yeah.
Uh, and do you think that Stepan Tifimovich, I think is, I'm gonna, apologies,
These
dear
Russian
audience,
names, man.
yeah, for butchering the names, but do you think that he's like a Jordan Peterson figure,
I don't know. I've never
or that
thought of
Jordan
it.
Peterson is a stand-in maybe for Stepan Tifinovich, whatever,
I don't
Steven.
know. I've never thought of that. So, like, off the cuff, I could see similarities. Like, Jordan Peterson never really cared about religion or anything like that outside of like,
Its
it being a
utility.
morale tool, a moral tool, I should say. Because, like, isn't that what he talks about in his map of meaning? Like, maps of meaning, like, religion helps us, like, have direction. It helps us know what's, like, right and wrong, et cetera, et cetera. I can see that from that angle, them being similar, but like I still don't know if Jordan Peterson like sincerely believes in the gospel. And I get
No,
that.
I don't think he
Yeah.
does, and that's
That's
I say the that part also because like his big thing was when does the left go too far?
yeah.
Right, that's like his refrain question whenever he talks to somebody that he disagrees with, especially somebody on the left, right? And that's Stephen. Uh, that's kind of his
That's
question
his
as well.
thing.
He's like,
Yeah.
"You guys are going too far. This is madness." You know,
Yeah.
he is brave for standing up in the end, and he is redeemed at the end. And who knows? Maybe Jordan Peterson will someday, come to know God.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, uh, God God can make himself known to anybody, and
Yeah.
certainly,
Do
he's
you sorry to get off, but like, do you keep up with Jordan Peterson? Does he
Not
like?
particularly, not
Yeah,
anymore. Basically, when he signed his deal with the Daily Wire, I kind of wrote him off. I was like, okay, cool. He has nothing interesting to ever say again.
yeah, no, for sure. I never, I don't know why, I just never got on to the bandwagon with him.
You were probably like a healthy young man.
I definitely was not. I honestly am confused why like that kind of skipped me. But I did convert like during the time that he started to get very popular, and I just remember like watching some of his like exegesis of Genesis, and I was like, this guy doesn't believe it. Like he just thinks
Right,
it's all
right, right,
like
right, right.
a psychological like tool to use, and I'm like, what's the point? Like I if this is what the Bible is to you, I really don't understand why you're investing like this much energy into analyzing it. You know?
No, and that's a really good point. I personally I wasn't a believer really when I'd first sort of when I saw that video series. I've
Yeah,
been meaning to maybe go back and watch it again now that I've converted to Orthodox Christianity. What's your religious background?
I am a Roman Catholic. I
Oh no,
almost converted to Russian Orthodoxy actually, um, but I don't know.
I'm
It,
just kidding. By the way, I have a lot of
wait,
love.
are you Russian Orthodox or just Eastern Orthodox?
Eastern,
Sorry.
technically American Orthodox. So there's
Okay.
the
Or
Orthodox
your
Church of
OCA,
America. Yeah.
or yeah, or they have a really bad reputation among Eastern Orthodox. What is with that? Like, I don't really keep up with y'all's politics, but that's just I have a
I'm
Rotor priest friend of mine, and he's just always railing against um, y'all, and I'm like, yeah,
honestly, I haven't heard that. My
good for
initial
you,
my
honestly.
my gut reaction would be that the churches, the various ethnic churches in the United States want to stay separate, right?
Yeah,
So I think maybe an American Orthodox church kind of changes that. It also doesn't, especially in the Russian context. Uh, the American church was originally founded by the Russian Orthodox Church, Russian Orthodox priests who were escaping communism,
yeah,
and it later became autocephalous in the
yeah.
70s, I think. I could be completely wrong.
I
Somebody
think it was
fact
the
check me on
'60s because Sarah from
60s,
Rose. Yeah,
60s or
sorry,
70s, right? So I'm thinking that that has a big part in it.
for sure.
Uh, but yeah, as far as the politics are concerned, I haven't gotten into that mire. I'm only recently
Yeah, don't bother.
baptized. Yeah, and it doesn't matter to me.
It's
Uh,
not going to help
the
like
reason
anything. Yeah,
my wife grew up. Well, my wife was baptized Russian Orthodox, right? I was baptized Roman Catholic, and we were both,
traitor.
well,
Just kidding.
well, no, and it's funny because when we got serious about religion, because we did like the sort of evangelical non-denominational thing for a while,
So did I. Yeah,
and we were like, okay, this is nice. We want a little bit more depth, because every just going to amphitheater every week and hearing about how you can 5 steps using the book of Nehemiah to improve your life is like, yeah, that's pretty
yeah,
cool, but uh, how is this really? I felt myself personally invested on Sundays, and then the rest of the week I was kind of doing my own thing.
yeah. You didn't have the liturgical life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that was I have my
sacramental
problems.
life, I should say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, I have my problems with the evangelical church, but there are definitely Christians who are evangelicals and Baptists and non-denoms and all walks of life that are much better Christians than I am.
yeah. I
So
totally agree.
that's not, but there is not one Catholic that's better than me, though. Uh, kidding, kidding.
All right.
I have a lot of love for my Catholic friends.
How do your parents feel about your conversion?
My dad doesn't really care. My
No,
parents, yeah, my mom passed away
no,
a
I'm
few
sorry,
years
man.
ago. It happens, that's life.
Yeah,
But my dad he he grew up. He was cradle Catholic, but he doesn't really practice. I went to CCD as a kid, but it's not. It wasn't something that was like super central to my life. Uh, so yeah,
Yeah,
he's whatever about it, which is I almost wish that he was. Uh, I wish that his faith was stronger, and it's something that I've
for
tried to talk to him about. But little by little, if I can get back to the church, anyone can. So
sure. Yeah. My dad is like more or less an atheist, like for all practical intents and purposes. And I don't know how to get through to that. Like atheism works for him. Like he has a lot of money. He has good health, so he gets to enjoy that money. And like,
well, of
it's
course,
like, yeah, how do I tell you that you need Christ? I remember the only time I ever got him to have a reaction, a very like I guess demonic would be a good word here, like a demonic reaction to religion is when I told him I wanted to be a priest. He like freaked out, and I was like, "You did not care about any other thing I wanted to do with my life. Why does this matter?" I don't know. It's really bizarre how like there's triggers like that for people that are apparently like apathetic towards like a thing, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But then,
But
yeah, if you take a further step, then it's no good.
yeah, once it's like integrated into my life, or like, I'm going to be, becoming a priest is making a sacrifice of your life. Like you are literally, dedicating yourself to God in a way that other people are not. I know that's like borderline clericalism. I don't know what you guys call it, but like, it is the harder route. Like you're forsaking, in the Roman Catholic Church, you're forsaking marriage, you're forsaking kids. Like you are giving up a lot of stuff to do this. And
Oh,
like, I
see,
think,
in the
yeah,
Orthodox Church, you don't have to give up marriage or kids. You just have
yeah,
to be married before you become a priest.
yeah. But I know that you guys don't let your bishops be married.
Yes,
And
that
yeah,
is true.
yeah,
Yes, which makes a lot of it makes a lot of
it
sense
does. No, it makes a
because
ton of sense.
how can you properly lead a flock when you have
Kids at home.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
kids at
it's
home,
hard.
or this just an attachment to people that you love. Like JD Vance recently talked about like the circles of love, right? Or
Yeah.
what's that
Ordo Amoris.
yes,
Yeah.
Ordo Amoris. Yeah, always the Latin's always so much fun. But that's real. Even it was real before it had a term.
No,
You
for
know,
sure.
so
And I think anyone with any like common sense or intuition understands that,
right now we just have to put up that big graph, uh, the liberal versus conservative. That
Yeah,
meme.
the heat map. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But to kind of veer this back to the book a little bit, right? Because you were speaking about your father, who is all intents and purposes an atheist, right?
Yeah.
And he got very mad at you. You said when you contemplated a more Christian life, a life in the priesthood. There's a character in the book who is murdered because he tries to get away from the atheist revolution because he finds uh, purpose outside of the revolution in both being a husband and a father and uh, just a
Yeah, he
Orthodox
wants to
Christian.
be an ordinary guy. Yeah.
He cleans up his room, I guess you could say, uh, which is you know great, but
No, it is.
unfortunate that
Yeah.
and the character's name is Shatov. He's he is besides Stephen, he is the redemptive character of the novel as well. And he kind of his scene where he dies reminds me of Joe Pesci in Goodfellas.
I haven't seen that. I'm sorry, man.
Oh damn, dude, you're just cutting me off from any. All right, well, so in Goodfellas is a gangster film, right? And
Yeah.
Joe Pesci, you've seen the meme, right?
Is it the one where he walks in the room and the two
Yeah,
guys are standing behind him? Yeah.
yep, yeah,
Okay. I'm
and right
very
after
familiar
the
with the meme, but
yeah, so
yeah.
he thinks he's gonna become a made guy in the mob, right? So
Yeah.
like it's a big deal. He walks into the room, it's empty, and then a second later somebody pulls out a gun and shoots him in the head.
Oh my gosh.
So and like uh that's it's a big shocking scene, right? And in the book you've got Shatov, who is elated after helping deliver his ex-wife's baby, right?
Hmm.
He decides that he's going to turn his life around. He's going to raise the child as his own, and he's going to be, and he's going to he's reconciled with his wife Marie, right?
Yeah.
Uh, what's his name? Urkel. That's probably not how you say it, but Urkel is one of the revolutionaries, and he gathers in. They're gonna go dig something. I think it's a printing press, right? They're gonna go get the printing press because back then distributing any sort of newspaper was against the law, so you had to hide your printing presses, right?
Yeah.
So they're gonna go
Russia,
dig
man.
this up, and he thinks he's gonna wipe his hands of this afterwards, like he'll be done, only to kind of have that like Pesci oh no, and he gets shot in the head himself and thrown into a lake.
Yeah.
uh just I don't know, that's probably my favorite part of the book.
That's
uh
interesting. Like, I don't know, Chateau did not make an impression on me.
oh
Not to,
really?
literally not to shit on you. I am really sorry,
No,
but
no,
I
that's
think,
fine, dude.
I think like the most like, um, how would I phrase it? I don't want to say like my favorite part because it feels really crude, like given the content matter. But like when, what's his name? The main villain, not Peter, Nikolai, when he goes to confess his sins to the Russian hermit, um, like that scene is really like, how do I want to phrase this? It was kind of this kind of goes back to where I was in life when I was reading the book. Like I was kind of obsessed with existentialism, and I was trying to figure out like the modern dilemma, like what is wrong with people of modernity. Like everyone kind of feels like they're acting like everyone's kind of placeless and weird, and like I feel like Nikolai is a great distillation of that, because when he goes to confess his sins for like the evil things that he's done, which is, spoiler alert, like he's a pedophile
Right.
and a rapist, and he's confessing these things to the priest, and the priest is like telling him like, well, look, you still can be saved, like you cannot like give up, like God is not going to give up on you. And like Nikolai is like completely unaffected by this man pleading with him, and Nikolai is just like, well, I really thought that this would feel more important, but I don't feel anything. Like I don't even care that I just confessed this. I don't care that I did that. Like I just, whatever, like I might as well have not come. And that was just kind of crazy to me, because that's like such a good representation of like that hopeless despair feeling of like nihilism that a lot of modern people have. Like, I don't know.
Well, and it's funny too because you in some ways you can't think your way into nihilism.
No, you can't. It's
It's
definitely like an embodying
you
like
have to
frame.
most likely, right? And I can't, I guess I can't speak for all people, but I can speak for myself that the reason that I turned away from God, right? The reason that but besides the fact that I was chasing my own pleasure, uh,
Yeah.
but there was in the back of my mind, I'd committed sins that I did not think were that I didn't think it was possible to be forgiven.
Yeah.
Right? I thought that I was unique in my sin and my
That's
evil.
a great way to put it. Yeah.
That I was, and in some ways, it's a form of narcissism as well.
It
Like,
is.
oh, I'm so irredeemable. I'm so bad that not me. I'm built different.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, what's that Patti Smith phrase? Jesus died for someone's sins, but not mine. That's
Right.
like,
Yeah, 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 definitely.
yeah.
And it's just another form of yeah, it's just a form of narcissism, right? To
No, it
think
totally
that
is. Yeah. And I think that's like, eh, what you're pointing out is like a really interesting, like psychological phenomenon that I see in a lot of people, whenever they sin, and they can't believe they did this bad thing. Like they just cannot believe it, and it's like, really, you can't? Like you're human. Why can't you believe this? Like you're human. Of course you're gonna sin like that. And I'm not saying like you have permission to do that, but it's like you
Mhm.
really shouldn't be so shocked at your like own depravity that like
and and I feel like I need to. Uh, there are some people that really do struggle with the things that they've done,
no,
right?
totally. Yeah.
So I don't
I
mean
mean you
to denigrate that or to lessen that struggle. But if you're out there and you think that you're irredeemable, get over yourself, I
yeah,
guess
like
is
you're
the
not.
most gentle
Yeah.
way to put that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
and,
I think like what's interesting about Nikolai, to bring back the book, is that like that kind of language is just totally unaffected. Like he's totally unaffected by that kind of language,
mhm.
as is Peter. Like they just don't care about this realm, like the theological realm at all. Like it doesn't mean anything to them. And I think like Nikolai going to confess his sins, that was like a last kind of urge within him, because after that, like he goes through with the plan to do the, like, he murders his wife, he sets up the fire, and then just kills himself. And you know like he I think that was like his last shot at redemption. um and he
And
yeah.
that brings it back to why it's a Greek tragedy. You know, the point of a Greek tragedy is you know the fatal flaw of the hero before he does, and I'm using hero in like the sort of
The Greek.
literary
Yeah,
version. Yeah, I'm not saying that the irredeemable, or not
I
irredeemable, but
actually
the
understood that part.
well, just in case the audience didn't, I'm not calling the child rapist a hero
Yeah,
in our
good
terms,
point,
but
for sure.
uh, he's he has a chance at redemption. He has a chance to take another road, but he is compelled by not only fate but also his own tragic flaw to continue down the road of destruction.
Yeah,
Right, and that's what happens to Nikolai. Even though even though we hate him, right? Even though we think that he is like horrible, I got to remember the priest, man. You know, you got to remember that he too is a child of God,
yeah,
and he can choose different, and but it has to be a choice too.
yeah,
The sin that you choose is also the redemption that you choose or don't choose. It all comes down to choice.
yeah. Like you can either this is really Catholic, by the way. I don't know if you know that you're doing that, but
I mean,
like the response to God's grace, like
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's Catholic in that it's one church. You know, like it's that.
word.
Like listen, the Orthodox and the Catholic Church, or as I would, I guess, call it, the Western Roman Church and the Catholic Orthodox Church, just to throw some labels out there.
I
But
got it. I got it.
the church, right? The church
Yeah,
was united for a long time before it was ever separate,
no, for
right?
sure. Like I
East and
feel like
West agree
in
on
broad
way more
strokes, yeah, I feel like
than they
in
disagree.
broad strokes, like us and even a lot of the big Protestant sects, like we agree on a ton, like
Hmm.
justification, response to grace. We just all have different terminology, and we're all really disagreeable. Like we can't, you know, sometimes it's really hard to acknowledge that the people you're arguing with are correct.
Right.
Um, Also,
And
I want to bring up one more scene. Sorry to cut you off.
yeah,
Are you
go
done
ahead.
with your thought? I am so sorry.
Yeah, no,
Like,
no, go ahead.
okay, so one scene that really stuck with me, and it's when Nikolai is going to the priest, and he stops by the scene of a murder, and there's these like teenagers that stop there to check it out too, because they just want to see a dead body, like just for the pure excitement of it. And that really like stuck out to me, because like I kind of told you before we got into this, but I was in Europe when I was reading this book, and that is just like such a European thing to do. Like you're just bored, let's go see a dead body. And like sorry to European listeners, but like that is like kind of the existentialist bored vibe that I got. Like who's that director that made Breathless? The French director Godot, I think. Um,
Um, maybe I'm not
I'm
familiar
looking
with
it up.
French films.
But yeah,
I think Godot. I think of Waiting for Godot, the play.
Godard, sorry.
Godard, got it.
Yeah, he had like a lot of his characters in his movies are just kind of like they're guys that are raised on pop culture. Like the movie Breathless is about this guy who is just, I don't know, he's like nauseated by society, and he's like completely influenced by society too, and he doesn't
Hmm.
realize that like he's trying to like rebel. So he like the movie opens with him murdering someone and stealing their car, like because he wants to be, a badass superhero. Like,
Transgressive, yeah.
yeah, he wants to be like the men that he's seeing on the movie screens, and he doesn't realize that like he's act like in his rebellion, he's acting out something that's been scripted to him.
Right.
And
It's like the goth kids that want to be different, so they all dress the same.
exactly. And I don't know, that's just always like a really interesting phenomenon to me when people think that they're fighting the system, but they're actually acting in a scripted way. Like I think what's his name, the Unabomber, like he really
Yes, yeah. I
articulates
was gonna
that.
bring that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
like the way
systems need
he
this trick.
exactly, like the way that he articulates it is just like so beautiful. And I feel like that's something that Dostoevsky was kind of touching on, like when he shows like a lot of these rebels and a lot of these bored, jaded teenagers trying to be like titillated, and they're just kind of prowling around looking for unacceptable things to stimulate them. So, but that scene always stuck out with me because when I was in Europe, I was just surrounded by people like that. Like they were just bored, jaded, looking to be titillated. And I read this book when I like just became Christian, so like it was still really new to me, and like I just wanted nothing to do with it. And I was like, Dostoevsky is like an eternal prophet, and like that's like one of the big reasons why the book is just so why it's my favorite book, honestly, because it's just so real. Like he touches on so many things that are so particular yet universal. I know that's like a nothing pretentious phrase, but like it really fits for him.
So I brought out my copy because I have both of the printed editions of Ted Kaczynski's work. So I'm definitely on a list, but whatever.
Dude, I read
So,
it at work when I was in the military, like on a
you know
government
what's
computer. Like I
you
just
know
pulled it up and I was like, I don't care.
what's really messed up is
What?
that before I bought the paper copies, I read Industrial Society and Its Future on a Kindle, just
Yeah.
unironically. Um, but at the beginning of his 2002 essay, "The Systems Need Is Trick," he quotes Jacques Ellul, who is
Alu. Yeah.
Jacques Ellul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Frenchie.
Apologies to the French listeners for butchering your pig language. Uh, this is the quote by Ellul. The supreme luxury of the society of technical necessity will be to grant the bonus of useless revolt and of an acquiescent smile.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that even in the book, right?
And this is like,
The
yeah.
revolution is really just destruction and paving the way for something else, but the something else is always some of someone else's design.
And it's
To
always worse because like
Right,
they
right.
don't understand what they're tearing down. They don't understand what they hate. They just hate it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it's education isn't about understanding, Scott. There's that the a few years ago everybody was talking about the Great Reset, right? That
Yeah.
we need to reset society and we need to bulldoze our norms. You'll own nothing and you'll be
You'll be
happy.
happy.
Uh, that's this. Like we have a society that's deeply sick and deeply unhappy. So we decide if well not we, but though there are those that have decided that they will release that angst and that anger and that uncertainty onto the world so that they can come clean it up with their solution that of course benefits a few.
Yeah. And I mean that is literally the whole plot of the book. They want to stage like, which is in modern terms a terrorist attack,
Yeah, the false
and they,
flag, yeah.
yeah, like they want to do a mass murder with a fire, and then they'll install their socialist utopia, and Yeah, it's kind of crazy because it not only does it backfire, I mean, predictably, like you can tell really quickly that these guys are idiots. Like only Peter is like the smart one, and Nikolai is intelligent, but he doesn't care. But like the bad guy gets away. Like Peter just gets on a bus. I mean, on a train, and he just leaves, and that's it.
And he leaves to Petersburg, right? So
Yeah, he's just
he's fomenting the next revolution.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it's gosh, the book is so genius. What did you think of the intro, by the way? When this is like one of my favorite like things in any book is that intro where um, Stephen is like hearing all these rumors about his son being back in town, and it's like for 50 pages of buildup, and you're wondering like where is his son? Like is he here or not? Like is this
I
just some
was
like weird
yeah,
plot device? Like
I was bored, honestly.
I
Like
wasn't. I was
the
curious.
first third of the book, I understand that it's necessary, but I was just like, "Oh my goodness, get to something."
That's
You know, it's
interesting.
really just these two old friends going over gossip,
Yeah,
and you
I don't know why,
see their
but it.
relationship play out
Yeah,
where it's like, oh, she just is like a lonely old sexless woman, and he's sort of like uh he's basically her.
Cook. Like
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, like
beta orbiter.
her house guy, like
Yeah,
but doesn't have to consummate their marriage, even though they're not married,
yeah.
but
He's
like
not
their
obligated
civil
for any
union or their
relation. Yeah,
common law marriage, whatever. Like, but he's for all intents and purposes just like her bitch,
yeah. Well, I just
and
thought it was interesting. Like I don't know. Like that is a real critique, but like I just thought the way that it was building up was interesting because you're like getting little increments being built up on this relationship, and then rumors are coming in to push it forward. And then just that scene where Steven walks into the room and his son is there, and he's like, "Whoa, you are here," and his son
right,
is just like such a prick,
right, and
and
he's like, I heard you were getting married.
yeah.
uh,
And like
and
and then it just goes from there, and you're like, holy crap! Like this is like I don't know. It just felt like I was kind of watching a movie.
Meanwhile, you have Nikolai's mother, who is, also the owner of the manor that the plot basically takes place
Yeah,
in. Uh, Stephen's friend, the sexless old woman, right? And she doesn't really know what's going on. She knows things because it's fashionable to know things. She knows
yeah.
European ideas because that's what
Her
is
kids bring back like
right.
yeah,
Not only that, but like she wants to seem sophisticated. She
yeah,
wants to seem, and that's part of the reason that she keeps Stephen around, is
yeah.
because
Because he is fashionable.
yeah,
Like
he
he
was the
was part of that
tutor.
milieu. Yeah,
Yeah, he was the tutor for her children as they grew up. But part of it's being lonely, but part of it's like kind of a flex. Like, yeah, I'm rich enough that I basically hold court in my own home. I have like
yeah,
my advisor, and she gets to pretend that she's more than she is with him.
yeah. And it's kind of
And
crazy that that dynamic is still like happening. Like
oh,
the
I mean, yeah,
influence of Europe on America, like it's starting to wane finally, but 10 years ago you wanted to agree with the Europeans on like anything. Like they were seen as still like the cutting edge of culture.
and I think we're kind of, just the chickens are coming home to roost with several
Yeah,
ideas, right? And America, well, for one, America was not devastated by the Second World War the way that Europe was.
no,
Really,
we
both
weren't.
world wars,
Yeah,
So even it's said, especially in our spheres, that it's illegal to be right wing post Nuremberg, but you can be a little right wing in America.
yeah.
You even if William F. Buckley purges the paleocons from the
I hate
conservative movement.
I hate that name so much. William F. Buckley.
Oh yeah,
Oh my
maybe
gosh.
you and I can do Man and God at Yale sometime.
I don't really know much about that,
Kidding,
but like,
kidding.
what is that?
Oh,
Sorry.
that was his like first book.
Oh wow. Yeah, I saw it. I really don't know much about William F. Buckley outside of like him purging people, and like that's enough for me to dislike him. But the
He
only
also
like
got into a
material
fist fight with I think it was Gore Vidal.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
which is like, you know, anytime that you make Gore Vidal look masculine, you're messing up.
well, I saw his interview with Fulton Sheen, and I was like, this guy's really slimy. Like, he's really pompous. He's really like I just didn't like him. Um, at all, and he was critiquing a lot of Fulton Sheen's ideas, but he had nothing to like offer himself. And I was like, I thought this guy was it. Like, I thought this was like the king of conservatism, but I guess like only in the sense of uniparty conservatism that just happens to agree with like every liberal position.
Right.
Yeah, and I had something else I was going to say. Oh well, yeah, I remember. I actually wanted to move to Europe until I met my wife, actually, because she was like, my wife is really far right and has barely any presence on the internet, so it's like
Based.
organically homegrown far right. Doesn't have that weird e-girl hatred that usually comes with a lot of those ideas. But
You gotta have her cloned.
I'll work on it, man. But she actually made me appreciate America a lot more because I actually wanted to move to Europe, and I was actually like setting up to make that happen. And she, when I met her, she was like telling me like, you know, that's kind of short sighted. Like it's such an irreligious
What are you,
society.
gay?
Yeah, I know, right? Like basically, that's what she was saying. She was like, you know, it's such an irreligious society. Like, you know, they're not even like a fraction of what we are when it comes to like religious ideals. Like, yeah, we have the biggest problems, but we also have like the biggest movement that wants to fix these things. Europe has
Mhm.
no energy in really either direction.
Right.
And I was
Yeah.
like, you're absolutely right. Like, you know, I was planning on moving to Finland, and literally like 2 months after I had that conversation with my wife, um, they arrested one of their politicians for like posting a Bible verse about how gay marriage is wrong, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like not only in a free speech sense, but it's like I'm literally going to tell my kids that like gay marriage is wrong. I will be arrested for that. Like if I live there, and that's when like the reality came in, and I was like, yeah, America's okay. Like it has a
Yeah.
lot of issues, but like
I'm
we're way better than a lot of the world.
well, I can't name a better place in the world. I mean, like, and even Russia has its problems. Modern day
Yeah.
Russia, a lot of people, and I don't know how much is propaganda and how much is like actually cool because I've been to Russia and
Have you?
yeah, it's beautiful.
Are
Moscow
you a
is
Russophile?
a little bit.
Yeah. Do you speak it?
Not no. I'm
Me it.
learning, but I know a little,
Yeah.
but not very much. But yeah, I've been to Moscow, and it's a beautiful city, well run. Everything that Tucker Carlson kind of showed in his trip is
Yeah.
true, right? But there's also a lot of problems with Russia. You know,
Yeah. There
the
is.
war has certainly not helped things, but at the same time, it kind of has because it has brought back a sense of Russian nationalism that was always sort of there, but just didn't have a focus.
Yeah.
And the Russian Orthodox Church was suppressed for 80 something years and is crawling its way back and even kind of in a sprint at this point.
Yeah.
People are finding God in Russia again. It still has, you know, high rates of divorce. It still has high rates of drug
Abortion.
use. A lot of, I think, AIDS is actually like a kind of a big deal there still.
What?
And I'm referencing things that I read in like the 2010s, so it could be totally different now. I'm pretty ignorant
Yeah,
to that.
for sure. I'm
Um,
completely outside of abortion. I'm not really familiar with like in alcohol rates of
right,
alcohol.
alcoholism.
Yeah,
Well, actually, and the younger generation is getting away from alcoholism
that's
because
awesome.
there's a more health conscious youth movement
Yeah,
in Russia, especially just coming out of the Soviet Union, coming out of perestroika, and you know, the Yeltsin years of the '90s.
you know what brought on like such horrific rates of alcoholism. Was it really just the Soviet bloc falling apart? Like,
Well, and I mean, part of it is, you live that far north, you don't see the sun for half the year,
yeah, for sure.
and even like, St. Petersburg especially, which is like, basically in the Arctic Circle, but Moscow's a little further south, but even that still, long cold winters, there's really not much else to do.
Yeah, man, I'm in Wisconsin. I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Like, I
Wisconsin's
haven't.
totally the same way. The rates of
Yeah,
alcoholism in Wisconsin is
yeah, they're through the
impressive,
roof.
and how shocking it is, you
Yeah,
know?
no, it's pretty bad. So like, we didn't leave the house this weekend because it was like -2 degrees the
Yeah,
entire
there's like
weekend, and it's like,
nowhere to
what do you
go.
do? Like,
You
yeah,
drink or you read.
yeah, or both. Hey,
Yeah, hey, have a couple beers.
but like Dostoevsky, in my opinion, is actually like a really bad writer in the sense that like he doesn't write pretty like at all. Like,
No,
you can't really, he doesn't do purple prose well. A lot of his dialogues are just, it's vomit. Like, it's just straight up like streams of consciousness. It's wild. It's like, comes off to me as like uncontrolled. But
well,
he's the
some of it. Okay,
best.
I will
He's the
say some
best.
of
And
it.
like, I don't know. Like, I'm just saying that like he's breaking all these conventions and all these rules, but like I, there's just so much substance there that it doesn't matter.
Which translation are you reading?
Cats. He's my
Okay,
favorite. I've
okay.
tried 4 different, so like I've earned this opinion.
Yes, no, I was going to say, because Cats, I think, is the best translator of
Awesome,
Dostoevsky as
dude.
well.
Yeah, his brothers Karamazov came out last year.
Yes,
And
I've been
I
meaning
was
to pick it
actually
up.
putting off reading it until that came out because I didn't like the Russian and the Jew. Forget
Oh,
their full names. You know what I'm talking about? They're all
and Volkanovsky.
yeah.
I
Like,
like their translations.
are they good? Okay,
I
they have a bad
think
reputation, man.
they have. Well, okay, I will say academically they are, because I read Russian lit in college,
Yeah,
and that's the translation that everybody uses.
yeah, it is.
Even with Katz's translations out there, they use Vivir and Volkanovsky most.
Why?
I don't know.
That's interesting.
But my Russian lit professor liked them.
Oh, there you go.
She also could read in Russian.
Yeah,
So like that's an opinion I'll
yeah.
trust.
You can't really argue with that.
A lot
Yeah.
of the commentary, because I went down this rabbit hole a few different times.
Oh, best translations.
Actually, every time that I do Dostoevsky on the show, I go down the translation rabbit hole.
That's what's up, man.
And
What would you have done if I said Constance Garnet?
I would have told you to read Vivian Volkanovsky, because her translation, while just an earnest effort, is just clunky.
It is, yeah.
And just, it's like she had a Russian to English dictionary next to her and was just copying it down word for word.
Yeah, Joseph Brodsky said the same thing. Do you know who Brodsky is?
I don't.
Oh, he's a Nobel Prize winner for poetry. He's a Russian exile. Really interesting guy. You should definitely look him up. But
I will definitely.
he kind of don't quote me on this, but I think he is one of the big reasons why we have a lot more translations of the big Russians, because he was like one of the guys who, he's Russian. He was like, guys, like, this is really bad. Like, this is a really bad translation. Like, you're reading Constance Garnet, you're not reading Dostoevsky, you're not reading Tolstoy, you're reading her.
I think that also Nabokov probably has a big
oh yeah,
as well.
I always forget about him.
And because he did an English translation of Eugene Onegin, the Pushian sort of. I guess it's a verse novel, because it's basically a poem. I'll probably do an episode on that with Sandbach.
Oh, I need to read that.
Yeah, no, it's great. But part of the story of Eugene Onegin, it seems, at least these days, is the care that Nabokov puts into translating it.
Oh my gosh, have you seen that infamous photo of like him retranslating someone's translation?
No, I haven't, but
I'll send it to you later. But like, yeah, he found someone like translating. I want to say it was Kafka, and he like was just like red inking it up, like just like restructuring everything, tearing it apart. And he basically was saying, I should have translated this. Why did they let you do it? And it's like, damn, Nabokov.
He did not like Dostoevsky.
Yeah, why? What?
It was actually for the same reason that you don't.
No,
He thought
it just works.
Yeah, he thought that it was ugly.
Yeah.
He thought that it was ugly and kind of juvenile and
I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, reading Dostoevsky did change like a lot of the reasons why I read. Like, I started looking for substance more than just pretty. Because before Dostoevsky, my favorite book was The Road by McCarthy.
Okay.
Cormac McCarthy.
You don't think that there's substance in The Road?
I do, yeah, totally. But it's also very beautiful. Like, it's addictive to read McCarthy's prose because he's so good at purple prose. He's so good at just making a really beautiful sentence. And Dostoevsky isn't. Like, just straight up.
I wouldn't call it purple. I wouldn't call McCarthy purple.
I don't mean it in a derogatory.
No, but I just mean like his sentences are like notoriously sparse. I think
it can be. But
I think like Dickens is purple, or Dumas.
Okay, what is purple prose?
Oh, it's like
flowery.
Yeah, very flowery. Very use a lot of adjectives and sort of. I mean, I guess
yeah. I'll double down. I think McCarthy definitely does that by that definition. Like that one scene where the guy in The Road is contemplating the firmament. Like I had to have like a dictionary next to me to like go through and see like what he was saying. And he like quotes that obscure German mystic Jacob Böhm, and I'm like, what is McCarthy doing? Like, this is insane. So I think he does do purple prose personally, but he definitely balances it with a lot of sparseness. Because like Hemingway was one of the biggest. Well, I'll get the excerpt later, and I will send you a Kobe picture next to it because I'm just slam dunking it. But no, before I read Dostoevsky, like I really loved the stylistic approach of McCarthy along with the substance. But like more than anything, I just really wanted to write like in that stylistic way. But after I read Dostoevsky, it was just kind of like substance is really at the heart of this. Like you don't have to write like the prettiest thing in the world to be good, or even to be great. Like, or even in this case, like in my opinion, the best. Because Dostoevsky is, I put him out there with Homer personally. Like,
really?
Yeah, I would. I love Homer. But like, I don't know, man, like the last 4 books of Dostoevsky, like I know I've only read 2 of them, but they're like so hard hitting. They're so Christian. They're so like, I don't know, you can extrapolate so much morality from that. Like,
and
it can teach you. Like sorry.
That's the thing about Dostoevsky, is that he sees the nihilism creeping into Russian society, and his refuge is the church.
Yeah.
His refuge is his refuge is or even not even his refuge, but his answer to nihilism is, oh no, we need to
We need to
return
be
to God.
Christian. Yeah. But I mean, like that alone isn't enough. Like I do, there's a transcendental element about him that makes him work, in my opinion. Like, are you familiar with the writer John Gardner? He wrote Grindel. That's how
I
he's most
have
famous
Grendel.
for.
I have
Yeah.
Grendel. I haven't read it though.
Okay, so John Gardner is an amazing fiction writer, but he's like an even better literary critic, and he's probably rolling his grave because like he did want to be known for his fiction work. But him and Nabokov had like almost literally antithetical views on like what literature should be doing. So for Nabokov, style is everything. Like he really like Nabokov legitimately said that he doesn't think there's any other point to literature than just making beautiful prose and having beautiful style. Like at the end of the day, that is what you should be striving for. John Gardner, on the other hand, he thought that the point of literature should to be like it should be teaching, like it should inform the human character. John Gardner was like highly educated in scholastic philosophy, so he's really obsessed with the teleology, like the end of things, like what is the purpose of a thing. And so for him, literature is to teach morality, and he has a lot of books that go into detail about this, but like he uses Dostoevsky and Nietzsche specifically as two examples. So, with Nietzsche, you have the Uberman, like the theory of the Superman, like the guy who can rise up and do whatever he wants, and like that is the true morality, is to have the power to do what you will. And it's an incorrect assumption. It's an incorrect morality too. But Nietzsche is using philosophy to prove his point. So he's like building a palace based on aphorisms, based on theorems, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have crime and punishment. And Dostoevsky is using he's trying to prove the same thing, but now with fiction, he has a laboratory to like see how that works. Like you have this ordinary guy who decides to become Superman. How does that play out? Like what is he doing?
And that's definitely 100%. And he plays this over and over again in his work. Right?
Yeah,
because Peter and Nikolai are both sort of echoes of this.
Yeah, like you can extrapolate a lot of lessons from what you read in Dostoevsky, and I think that's. I mean, like I haven't read it in 7 years, but like I think about that book pretty often, man. Like it comes to my mind pretty quick whenever I don't know. I just think about literature and what I enjoy from it. It's like that sets it apart. Like him and Homer are really some of the only writers I can do that with.
Have you read any Tolstoy?
I haven't. I have the Russian and the Jew translation of it. I really like. That's what soured my opinion on them because like it's just such a chore to read it.
Anna Karenina or
I haven't read it yet. I really haven't. War and Peace. Sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, I thought I said that. I should say. Is Tolstoy good?
Tolstoy's great. Okay. I actually now prefer Tolstoy to Dostoevsky.
What translations do you recommend?
I read the Pivir and Volkansky translations. Yeah.
Okay.
I will say that so I read Anna Karenina on my own for the show. I read War and Peace in college, so I got handheld through War and Peace.
Yeah.
Which is like honestly, when it comes to great literature, you really should read it on your own.
You should treat it, yeah.
Well, read it on your own, and then look up, especially if it's something that you like.
Stuff,
look up lectures and look up the scholarship of these things to get a better understanding of things. Because I mean, like, especially for somebody like Dostoevsky, sure. Well, Tolstoy is I think pretty straightforward, but it just helps you to think clearer about these things, and maybe you'll hear something from a professor or a learned person. Maybe you'll listen to this podcast even and take umbrage with something that is said, but at least you're thinking about it.
For sure.
At least you're engaging with the text and also with the people around the text. Really, what the university and the classical liberal education, like the liberal arts education, was supposed to be.
Yeah.
The thing that just doesn't really exist anymore. Like there was a reason that like Mortimer Adler put together the great books sort of curriculum. I think Mortimer J. Adler wrote
I have that book.
How to Read a Book and Why, right?
Yeah.
How to Read a Book.
Yeah,
so How to Read a Book and Why is Harold Bloom. But he was also on a committee to basically establish the great books of the Western canon.
For sure.
And that was used as a blueprint for several universities and their great books programs. And now there's like maybe a handful that really even try to have a great books program.
Yeah.
I think probably there's the one that comes to mind is St. John's, which is like you have to read a certain amount of these books in order to graduate and discuss them. But most of the time.
Sorry, I almost went to Baylor because of their great books program.
And even then, right? Because half the time you're just getting taught by a grad student who
doesn't care, they don't get it,
either doesn't care or thinks that they are already beyond this.
Yeah,
right.
That's really sad.
One of my literature professors in college, I ended up getting a history degree, but I took a lot of literature courses. I probably wasn't far off from getting like a literature minor.
Yeah,
and I just didn't. But she told me that there are literally grad students who have not read the Iliad, right? That you can get into a PhD course reading a minimal amount of Shakespeare, right?
Yeah,
because there's no reason. We've thought our way around this, where it's like, oh, we don't have to read the Iliad, we can read the Aeneid, and not to take anything away from Virgil, the Aeneid's great, but it's like watching. I'm gonna use a crude analogy. I love my crude analogies, but it's like watching, The Empire Strikes Back without watching A New Hope.
Yeah, man, I'm totally with you. I actually, this is really funny. It's super related to what you just said. When I was in college, I was taking a great books class, or epic books class, like, it's going over the books in the epic genre. Mm-hmm. And the first book we were reading was the Iliad. And I was sitting next to this guy named Brandon. I don't remember his last name, so no docs, but I was like, talking to him one day. I was like, Brandon, what's your major? And he's like, oh, I got a major in philosophy, but I'm getting my PhD in philosophy now. And I was like, oh, why are you in this class? And he's like, oh, my advisor told me I needed to read the great books because I've never read the Iliad and, the Odyssey. And I was like, what? Like, that's so weird to me. And then he actually dropped the class because he thought the Iliad was too gory and he didn't like it. And I was like, America's so fucked. Like, this is so crazy to me.
And I mean, like, the Iliad's a gory book, but it's like,
dude, it's a war book. Like,
exactly. And at the same time, it's like you would hope that your exploits were so recorded, right?
Yeah.
Because what Homer does is this isn't. We've gone so far afield, but I don't care.
It's okay. Dude. I love talking about Homer. Actually, like that class. Sorry to interrupt you, but like I almost got into it with a lot of people in that class because it was so liberal. The teacher was not. He was actually this old like Christian man. But anyway, that second.
It's amazing that the Christians are the one defending the pagan.
The great books. Yeah, I know. Right?
Basically the pagan Bible. This was their mythology, their foundational myth. And it's like,
and we kept it because it's badass. Like,
right. But there's also just so much to learn from it. You can't. Greek philosophy was used, especially in the Roman Church, philosophy is helping to
Actually,
understand God. Like
I
you
want
can't
to
get Aquinas, you can't get Saint Augustine without
Aristotle.
without Aristotle, and you don't get Aristotle without the Iliad.
Yeah. No, yeah, and like you were saying, like there's so much that book can teach you, like the Iliad. In book 2, where Agamemnon is like, he's viewing the ranks and he's like calling out people. I remember like someone in the class said that was like a really stupid part of the book, and I was like, that's real life. And they were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, I've deployed to combat environments. I've been around like army infantry soldiers, and I've seen the NCOs of like groups like say that to their soldiers, like, hey, you ain't shit. Like you are going to be the reason we die. Like I've actually seen them take on the role of Agamemnon. Like this strikes me as like more real than anything. Like that's probably why this book is held up. Like that feels like a living moment.
There's a lot that is lost in translation in terms of morality. Like
we're able, like we don't deserve a lot of this high culture like literature because it's just totally lost.
Well, I even mean like
sorry.
There was this when we were discussing the Iliad in one of my courses, in one of the classes I took. This guy was like, I don't understand why Achilles is so mad because the girl gets taken away, and it's like like doesn't he understand that like slavery, especially sex slavery, is wrong? And it's like, wow, like all right, man, like all right, we're gonna have to unpack this to borrow like the shitliest phrase ever. But yeah,
that's like, oh my gosh.
Anyway, but that's why I started this podcast, because I do love literature. Right?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing.
I love the canon, and we might be entering in like a post-literate society. But
that's what John Gardner said. Yeah, you should. I'll send you an interview of him.
Please do, because now I want to read Grendel.
Yeah, he has this interview where he's talking, like the guy is just straight up asking, like, so John Gardner is very opinionated and he holds no punches with his opinions. But the guy is asking him, like, what do you think about literature? And he's like, literature should be to teach, it should be to inform. And he's like, so you think that like, only people that are like higher minded should write? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, what? He's like, so you don't think like anybody should write? He's like, no, not at all. Like, I think only like a noble class of people should write. And while he's going through this interview, he's like explaining like the state of modern academia and like how bad it is. He's like, he keeps John Gardner keeps saying like, I keep meeting people that they've never read Beowulf, and the ones who do, they don't understand it. And he's like, John Gardner's like, it sounds like he's kind of panicking. He's like, this is lost knowledge. Like, this is going to go away. Like, there's not going to be guys who understand this stuff anymore. And when that happens, they're not going to understand why it's important and why we kept it around. And it's just going to disappear. And it's like, that's so true. Like, there is kind of like an existential crisis in the state of good art. Like, when people stop understanding it, they stop seeing the need for it, and it just will disappear in a generation.
And I think it was Dave, the distributist, who posted about this, where he said, we shouldn't ask why the Library of Alexandria burned down. We should ask, how was anything saved?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you had, especially to use the Iliad and Odyssey as an example, you had monks in their abbeys and in their,
just rewriting it,
but also burying copies for when they were invaded by Vikings or Huns or whatever, right? They would write down the copy, they would bury them, and we're still finding these manuscripts all over Europe and all over antiquity, whatever the old world was, right? Because they understood the importance of these things, right?
Yeah.
And we are, buy physical books, folks, because
seriously,
this internet thing is.
Does it freak you out that like we have like this digital library that's just probably a generation or two away from just going completely extinct?
No, it doesn't freak me out. It does.
Not like oh no, I'm going to lose out on stuff, but it's just like kind of crazy that like 300 years from now, no one will understand what a computer is. Like they'll look at data chipsets and be like, what is this? This is really weird.
Maybe.
And it's just like understandable knowledge in there, Yeah, I mean, the internet being democratized and given to the world is honestly, in my opinion, a huge mistake. Like I think it's really done more harm than good. Like for most people.
Who's to say? Because I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you
disagree with me, it's the same as like the argument.
Yeah, technology is technology.
Gutenberg is the devil because he brought literacy to the masses.
Yeah, dude, totally. Like McLuhan was right. Have you read Marshall McLuhan?
I've read a few things by him, but he's a little. There's so much nonfiction that I haven't gotten to.
No, I don't believe you.
I decided to put down nonfiction a long time ago because I feel like I think fictionally, if that makes sense. Like I think in parable and story, and it's a lot easier for me to understand things in the realm of being told a story or reading a story than just reading words on a page that lay it out completely.
Yeah, bro, I'm not gonna lie. I actually had this realization like 3 weeks ago, and I've like kind of done with nonfiction for a while. Because the last few years all I've been reading was nonfiction, and I was like, this isn't making my life magical like fiction does. Like I'm just collecting historical facts, trivia. It's just that's cool, but I don't feel empowered. I don't feel.
I will say that the onus is on you when you read nonfiction. The onus is on you to apply it, right?
Yeah.
To make you can be a very interesting. You can be a very interesting person. If you read a lot of nonfiction, it's just there aren't a lot of people that are very interesting.
Yeah, like I have a friend. He reads nothing but nonfiction. He knows more history than anybody I've ever met. I'm sincerely not exaggerating, but like. He's a rare one. Like he's able to like read the history of Ireland, and he's like, hell yeah, those are my ancestors. I feel so powerful now, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. Cool, man. I'm gonna go cry to Dostoevsky. Like that's what it's me doing.
Well, Scott, I gotta be getting.
Are we really ending on that note?
No.
Okay, the fuck.
Yeah, no, that's a great place to end it. Getting an Irish friend, Scott. What do you got going on? What can people do to support your work, or what you do on Twitter?
You can follow me first of all. I would like to get back to 1,000 followers. It would really help my vanity. I don't know if it'll help my Christian soul, but it'll definitely help my vanity. I will sleep better at night. I have a compendium of short stories that I want to release this year. I'm going to put them on a Substack and just start rolling those out. I have Mazer on my payroll. I'm going to be throwing them his way to tear apart. He's really good at editing, but I've been writing for 10 years and I haven't really published any of it. So it's like let's do it.
People say that you're not good until you've been doing it for 10 years, and I've only been doing it for 3, so I'm sure you're very good. And
you haven't read any yet.
But I don't know. You seem like just from the way that you talk about literature and the way that you think.
It's my passion. If I could make a living teaching English, I think I would just go do that.
Bro, same.
Yeah, but $50,000 a year is just I can't make that work.
I mean, also you need like a stupid advanced degree, so not only do you have to go.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous.
To get the PhD to get your professorship, but then you're basically just teaching. You're teaching on rails. You are.
You don't have to teach it. Yeah. No, but actually do want to launch a YouTube project, basically teaching, because it's like, it's a really corny phrase, but if you can't get the job you want, then you probably need to create it. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. That's just one thing I've been entertaining.
Welcome to Canon
So,
Fodder, man.
what's up, guys?
I'll have you back to discuss John
I would love
Gardner.
that, man. Yeah, I could talk about John Gardner for hours. I'll send you some of his stuff. Like, I really think you'll love him.
I think so too. It sounds like it.
No, he's
Yeah,
brain. Yeah.
as for me, The Search for More Money is available for purchase on Amazon. That's my short story collection. You can buy the Double Dealer issue 14, available now, also on Amazon. You can become a paid subscriber on our Substack, get exclusive essays by the Double Dealer staff, as well as your own episode of Canon Fodder. We'll just have to schedule that out.
Okay.
And yeah, otherwise follow me on Twitter at tr_Hudson. Follow at DBL Dealer. I don't really know how to end podcasts, so I will say insert ending here.